Last year, I closed on one of the biggest wholesales of my career, and today I am sharing the exact breakdown of how I did it. So let's get into it. Hey, it's me, Vayna. I am a wholesaler here in Seattle. I do 20 to 30 wholesales per year in addition to being an agent. This is my full-time job since 2019, and here on my channel, I share how I make the money and what I do to invest and grow it. So let's get right into it. This is one of my favorite deals I've ever done. The process was smooth and fairly easy, from putting the property under contract with the seller to selling it to a buyer and closing. I even sold them another property, so that was cool too. There were a couple keys that made this deal such a success that I will highlight throughout this video. So let's start with the exciting part. How much did I make on this deal? The total assignment fee on this deal was $70,000. I put the property under contract for $475,000, and then I put it up for sale to my buyer's list for $525,000, and then a fellow wholesaler sold it to a buyer for $545,000. So they made $20,000 and I made $50,000 on this one deal. I found this deal through a cold call. I cold called the seller, so I got their phone number from my list that I built on Property Radar. This is the system I use to build all my distressed property lists and skip trace the owner information to get their phone numbers. The lists I pull and call are single and small multifamily properties that were built in 1990 or earlier and owned for 20 years or more. So I'm shooting for houses that have been owned for a long time and are likely not updated, pretty old, in need of repair, and hopefully the owner has owned it so long that they're ready to move on. So these lists don't really guarantee that the seller is selling, but that's why it's our job to call down the list and ask them when they plan on selling and see if they're ready to make a move this year. So it's fairly simple. Once you have the systems, all you have to do is plug and play, right? So there's a link to Property Radar and all the other systems I use in the description below. Most of them do offer free trials, so you can try them out and pull your own list. But this is what I do. I pull the lists off Property Radar, I plug them into Mojo Dialer, and I call for 2 to 3 hours a day and make 20 to 30 contacts every single day, and that is where most of my deals come from. Of course, I remember this call like it was yesterday. I just did my script, and literally the entire phone call followed my script. Everything I said, the seller responded perfectly to lead into my next question. It's pretty simple. When they picked up the phone, I was like, hey, my name's Vayna. I'm looking to buy property here in Federal Way. Just curious about when you may plan on selling. And they were like, we're planning to sell in the next couple months. I said, great, where are you moving to? Etc., until we set up a time to meet. My wholesale script also is down below. I give that to you guys for free. Just click down below and download it, grab it, go check it out. But that is where the appointment and ultimately the deal actually came from. I use the list builder and Property Radar to pull the lists. I pay for the phone numbers. I pull anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 phone numbers at a time every few months, and then I just go to town on the calls every day. Pure hustle. So next step, putting the house under contract. So I set the appointment with the seller from a cold call. I didn't know exactly how much they wanted, but they seemed pretty open. So before the appointment, I did my homework. As an agent, I have the MLS to pull comparable properties to find the ARV or after repair value to determine what my offer price is going to be. But I also like to use Property Radar to pull comps because it's a little easier to use sometimes. And basically, I found out that the ARV on this house was about $700,000, and I know that 80% of the ARV minus rehab is what I can sell the house to a flipper for. So 80% of $700,000, I can sell this house for $560 minus the rehab cost. When I haven't seen the property yet, this is the extent of my research. I figure out my base offer, and then when I get there, I see what kind of work is needed, and I subtract the rehab amount from that base price to get my offer price. So $560 minus rehab. I'll also pull comparable properties of what the property is currently worth and its current condition, and I'll present that to the seller as well so that they know what they could get on the market. In this case, market value was about $550. So I showed up to the appointment with my market value comps, my purchase and sale contract, and my listing contract, just in case they wanted to go the listing route. Because I'm an agent, I get to offer that option. Because I have a good amount of wholesale and flip experience, I can get a pretty good rehab number. It's always safest to overestimate rehab so that your numbers are good. If you have no idea what your rehab is, you can bring a contractor on a follow-up appointment after you know the seller is motivated and you're within range of their desired number. So on this house, rehab was about $40,000, so I know I wanted to be at $560 minus $40,000, around $520,000 would be a great deal. So the first key that made this deal work was the seller's motivation. They were a married couple who really wanted to move down south. They had sold a few houses in the past and had poor experiences with realtors. So they were super inclined to sell without having to make repairs, clean up the property, let people in for showings and open houses, and just have the certainty of a cash offer and knowing how much they were getting and when when they were getting it. I explained these benefits, I told them what the house was worth on the market, how much they would net after paying realtor commissions and closing costs, and then I presented my off-market offer of $475 with no commissions or fees. Remember, market value was about $550 and it cost about 8% to sell, so their net on the market would be $506, but that included the headache of making repairs, cleaning up, letting buyers through to see it, dealing with offers and traditional buyer contingencies, etc., versus taking my offer that nets them a little less but got them a quick sale without the hassle of listing. And they were super happy with the offer and the off-market process. It was pretty crazy. Like, I remember just on the first appointment, they were super appreciative towards me for making this process easy for them. Plus, I could help them buy their next house. So for these sellers who wanted a quick, clean sale and a smooth transition to their next house and only dealing with one person to arrange it all for them, I was solving their problem in the best way for them. And that's what wholesaling is. It's really seeing where they're at, hearing their concerns. They didn't want to work with realtors again. They didn't want to put it on the market. They wanted the certainty of the cash offer. That's all they needed to buy their next house. And I was helping them buy the next house too. And so it was overall just very easy process for them. Hey, it's me, Vayna. Just want to pause real quick and shout out this video's sponsor that I am very excited about. When I cold call sellers for listings and wholesale or mail out to find properties to buy, I get tons of questions on where I'm getting these owners' numbers and addresses. Now for this, I've tried a bunch of programs out there over the years, and the best one I found is Property Radar. So I'm super psyched to partner with them to connect you with the best tools for success in real estate and prospecting. I've been using Property Radar for a few years now with tons of success, and what this software does is, like I said, it aggregates all of the property and owner data in your area, and with the click of a few buttons, you're able to filter by just about every property characteristic you can think of. From the size of house you're looking for, to zoning, to how long it's been owned and how much equity the owner has. With Property Radar, you can create the perfect property profile and pull a list of those specific homes in your desired area. Super powerful tool. I've made over $300,000 with lists created on Property Radar, so I can say with 100% certainty that compared to other platforms I've tried, Property Radar has the most accurate information, which is a big deal with sites like these. You don't want to spend money and get going prospecting just to get the wrong information. And it has the most user-friendly interface, all for the best value. I've got a link for a 3-day free trial to Property Radar in the description below. Go ahead, try it out, play around with it. And if you're curious, I do have a video on my channel covering the lists I create and how I use them, so check that out. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more real estate content, and let's get back to the video. And this is something I hear from new wholesalers and even agents all the time is, why would a seller take less for their property? It makes no sense when they can just list and get top dollar. Not everyone wants to go on the market and do all that work for a little bit more money. There is a serious value add of making a sale convenient for them. Even if you have the best listing agent in the world, as a seller, you still have to do work on your house to list it. And a lot of people don't want that, and that's why wholesaling exists. If everybody wanted to do repairs and clean up their house to list it on the market, and if everybody loved realtors, then wholesaling wouldn't exist. So these guys signed my offer for $475. They gave up $25,000 to not list the house for 30 days, not have to deal with buyer contingencies, not have to make any repairs, clean up the property, let anybody through the house. They signed my offer for $475. They knew the contract was assignable and I was going to transfer it over to one of my cash buyers, and so I got to work. It's a very transparent process. I mean, sometimes they look at me and they don't really believe that I've got the money. And so it's kind of an easy thing to say. You don't have to tell them that you are the buyer. You can say, hey, I have a wide network of cash buyers and I'm simply going to charge the buyer a fee. And they love that because they don't have to pay me. I'm charging the buyer. And so after putting the property under contract, the next step was to sell it to a flipper. So the second key that made this deal great was that this house was in a great location that I knew was super desirable. And as long as my numbers were good, I wouldn't hear any complaints from buyers on location and I could get it assigned pretty quick. I already had 2 VIP buyers that I knew loved this neighborhood, and more importantly, are serious buyers who come with cash and can close on our timeline. So I texted both of my VIPs directly that day. I offered the property at a starting price of $525. I let them know it was about a $40,000 rehab and $700,000 after repair value. So there is money to be made here. Now, most experienced wholesalers have a few buyers in their back pocket that they give their good deals to. Top tip, tip, be really nice to your wholesalers so you can be one of them if you're looking to buy. So I set one follow-up appointment with the seller to get both buyers in at once to view the property and see if they'd be interested. When I showed it to them, neither buyer was interested themselves, but one of them was an agent who I already had a relationship with, and they had a buyer who they knew it was perfect for. They were looking for something to put their family in, which is great because then they're not so concerned with getting an amazing deal on a flip. Now, I don't always like to sell to buyers who are going to live there because they sometimes use traditional loans which can fail, and they sometimes are emotionally attached and want to see the house 100 times and disturb the seller. So I usually shy away from traditional buyers, if you will, but in this case, the buyer did have cash, so it was all good. I told the agent, go ahead and send it to them with your fee added on top, so I'm still getting my cut, and he sold it to them that day for $545. And we're gonna talk about the timeline in a sec, but it was like right within the first couple weeks of the contract that I found them their next house anyway. And so if they needed more time, we would have had the buyer just wait for us to find the next house, and then we would close on the same day. But in this case, we found their next house pretty quick, so that wasn't too much of a concern as far as closing timeline. And then as far as working with the agent, it's pretty common for wholesalers to work with agents or other wholesalers to sell our deals. And I could have tried to sell it to someone else directly, but the key here was that the buyer wasn't concerned with margins, so we were getting a larger fee. Like one of my best flippers already turned it down at $525, and here was someone ready to give me my asking price, and I'm usually just first come, first serve, so I'm not gonna turn that down. It was an easy assignment. So timeline, I assigned the property like 5 days after putting it under contract with the seller, and meanwhile, I was showing them houses for their next purchase, and we found the one they liked right around the same time, so it was within that period. We put an offer in for their next house about a week after our initial meeting with the seller. That house was $450,000, and they were using the proceeds from selling their house that I'm wholesaling to pay cash for the next one. So we got that offer accepted and arranged to close on both houses on the same date as about 3 weeks out. This all happened fairly quickly. You know, sometimes the seller needs time to find the next house, but in this case, we just happened to find them a great house that they really liked, so we were able to close quickly. And remember, both transactions were cash, so there were no loans or appraisals to wait on. It was very, very seamless, one of my easiest deals ever. The sellers loved that they were essentially just trading in their old house for a new one. And so transactionally, we sent in our purchase and sale and assignment agreement to escrow for the sale of their house. The seller signs the purchase and sale, the buyer signs the assignment agreement, and then the accepted offer for their purchase to the same escrow company so that they can just transfer funds straight from the sale to the purchase. And like I said, we closed 3 weeks later, which is when the agent and I got paid our fee to the buyer. So what were the challenges here and what did I learn? So by far, this is the easiest deal I've ever accomplished. I have other videos on the tougher ones I've done, and I had to go through a lot of mistakes on past deals to earn the experience to make this deal an easy one. I would say the hardest part of this deal was dealing with a buyer who was buying the house for personal use. They did want to see the property a couple times, but the seller was fine with it. You know, they were getting what they wanted. And then the buyer did try to have some items delivered before closing, which freaked out the seller, but really these weren't big issues at all. It's not like I had buyers back out or have mistakes on the contract or miscommunications messing up the deal, all of which I have had happen in the past. But overall, my favorite part of this transaction was the trust that the sellers had in me to make this sale to purchase happen for them. Like if they had gone with a regular real estate agent, they would have had them fix up the house, make repairs, put it on the market, wait for an offer, and only then would they have gotten the certainty to move on to the next house, which they communicated from the beginning is what they didn't want. Not to mention I also got them a great deal on the house they bought. And so what I did learn here was that when we build good relationships with our clients and give them certainty and transparency, our job becomes a lot easier and even fulfilling that we're accomplishing our duty as real estate professionals. You know, I'm not an agent or a wholesaler, I'm a real estate professional, a real estate advisor. We are here to hear the situation and solve the problem. That's how we get paid the big bucks. But that's the deal. Put it under contract for $475, sold it for a total of $545 through the agent who made $20,000. So I made $50,000 on this deal at closing, including the commission on the next house. Is the biggest deal I've ever done. That is how it's done. The point of this video was to show you kind of a real life example of what the process actually looks like, what kind of pitfalls can happen. Like I said, this was an easier one, and so I will put out some videos on the more complicated ones I've done. And if you want to get into wholesaling, I have a bunch of videos on the process. I'm coming out with a free course that will give you the A to Z to do this in your own market. So let me know in the comments what you would like to see out of that and what your questions are on this deal. And then if you have a deal that you need help with, reach out. There's a link below to send me your deals, whether it's a super hot lead or a deal you have in our contract that you need help selling. I am happy to say that I've just recently been able to start helping people outside of my own market with their wholesale deals. So check those out. Shout out to Property Property Radar for sponsoring this video. Check them out with the link in the description. Go get some wholesale deals with my list criteria. Good luck, and I will see you in the next one.